Dittam, Gidakatam Takadikutar Gidakata Dittam, Gidakatam Takadikutar Gidaka Dittam, Gidakatam Takadikutar Gidakatalangodinta Din, Talangodinta Din, Dittam, Gidakatam Takadikutar Gidakata Dittam, Gidakatam Takadikutar Gidaka Dittam, Gidakatam Takadikutar Gidakatalangodinta Din, Talangodinta Din.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tulasi Iyengar. I will be starting medical school this fall at UT Southwestern in Dallas. And today with me, I have Dr. Khader Vali, also known as the Millet Man of India. Just a little bit about him. So Dr. Khader Vali is a renowned nutritionist and advocate for natural and holistic approaches to health. With a passion for promoting traditional and indigenous foods, he's dedicated his work to various aspects of holistic well-being. Apart from his expertise in millets and their health benefits, he also conducts in-depth research on reviving ancient traditions such as cooking in clay pots and utilizing structured water. He also focuses on bringing back traditional methods of processing oils and plant-based decoctions that promote healing and support overall human health. His contributions to the field of nutrition and his efforts to revive ancient practices have earned him recognition as the Millet Man of India. He was honored with the prestigious Padmashri by the Government of India in 2023 for his remarkable contributions to health and well-being. You can also research on Google and Wikipedia independently to learn more about his work with millets. And if you do not have, a lot of background, I would really, really highly encourage you to look him up and learn a little bit more after listening to the rest of our interview. So once again, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Namaste, everyone. Good morning, I guess, for you guys there. Yes, very good morning.
Okay, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So once again, you're the Millet Man of India. So could you tell us a little bit more about the role of millets in our diet? What type of millets are particularly beneficial? And what's the health impact of regular millet consumption compared to maybe like a more traditional South Indian diet or South Asian diet where rice is and wheat might be a little bit more incorporated than millet are?
Yeah, can you just hold on? I will switch the don't disturb button. Otherwise,
Okay,
thousands of calls keep coming.
sounds good.
Just give me 1 minute. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, bit by bit. Yes. What are millets? Basically, let's know what are millets. Millets are actually C4 grasses that have been recorded or say first domesticated grass on this planet by humans or other way around, that the grasses have domesticated humans or humans have domesticated the grass. Basically, logically, this was the only food that humans to start with ate. First, of course, the Westerns keep us thinking that these fellows, as soon as they got something onto their hands and started hunting and gathering things like that. And that's the picture you see in all the so-called scientific journals. And then we all tend to believe that, but that's not the case. The case was that human beings were not able to run or catch even a rabbit for that matter, because they are faster than the human beings. So till they got the weapons into their hands, they were not hunters or gatherers. They were actually just walking around, strolling around, and the things that was available for them was the grasses that are growing everywhere. 95% of the planet has C4 grasses. They do not need water. They do not have any requirement of fertilizers. They do not have any requirement of anything at all. Even the barren lands, these grasses grow. C4 grasses. Why am I using the word C4? C4 is the oxaloacetic acid from which the glucose is synthesized in these grasses, and that's called C4 photosynthesis, wherein the pyruvic acid to oxaloacetic acid, C3 to C4 step is short-circuited in this genetic code of C4 grasses, such that there is no need for water. That means if you give water, you get more yield in C3 grass. And that C3 grass is your paddy rice and your Triticum vulgare, that is the wheat, which is actually chosen by these corporate food companies in the name of Green Revolution, somewhere back in 1960s or so, when the World War ended. The remaining bomb material is converted to fertilizer, and then they recognized that by giving the fertilizer and water, you can increase the yields of C3 grass, that is rice and wheat. And so that suited them to do business. And then immediately they said, we are the scientists, and Green Revolution food experts all at a sudden popped up and started telling the whole world that what people were eating all these years, that is thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Human race ate millets in different parts of the world, different continents, different contexts, different weather patterns, different temperatures. It hardly mattered to the C4 grasses because there is limitless, boundless, 10 degrees to 50 degrees they can grow, and there is no need for anything. So these guys grew everywhere, and all the green fields, open spaces, near desert lands, near open spaces of mountains, in the valleys, you name it, any part of the planet, these grasses were growing, and they're still growing. They're still growing. There are more than 6,000 varieties of it, and most of them, sexual cycle begins and they make grains, rather seeds, so small that you cannot even see them. And some of them, maybe 200 varieties, we can see with our naked eye, and they're all less than millimeter. So milli means small. That's how the word millet came to existence. So millets or C4 grasses that can absorb water from the atmosphere. Who does that job? Hygroscopic bacteria being hosted by these grasses, such that there is no need for even rain in some places. Of course, 4 or 5 rains would certainly help all the plants, any plant for that matter. So once they establish their vegetative growth, the sexual cycle begins and you start making the grain. Grain is nothing but storing some food, carbohydrate, complex carbohydrate, along with the embryo. And that's what seed is all about. So these are the seeds that are so small in nature. I don't think there is any other plant on this planet which has got the smallest seeds compared to millets. And in fact, in Indian literature, they're actually referred, some of them are Kshudra Dhanya. That means no one knows how this grass is growing. I mean, it's like Bhuta Preta, voodoo magic. And that's what is called Shudra. Shudra Dhanya, Truna Dhanya, small minor millets, major millets, and Kiru Dhanya, Truna Dhanya, Chiru Dhanya, Chota Anaj, Mota Anaj, Laghu Dhanya. So these wide varieties of names all over the Indian continent, subcontinent, were existing long before, even before our ancestral literature existed, because I have met tribals who did not know what is Keshav, what is Vishnu, what is religion, Sanatana Dharma. They all lived in the forest. Their ancestors lived, even today they are living. Their language is not there. So we have met such people, and they were still using these grains, and they are still now also using the same grains. So the names are different, but the wonderful C4 grasses were the main staple food for human race for time immemorial. Time immemorial. So as long as the humans existed, the food was this. And lo and behold, that was the gut of humans needed long back and even today, because it is so beautifully intertwined fiber into the grain, into the complex carbohydrate of these grains. To release glucose into your bloodstream, it takes 8 to 10 hours, because the fiber has to be dealt with our digestive tract. So the homeostasis of the blood in your body is never ever disturbed when you eat millets. On the contrary, when you eat rice and wheat, you are dumping glucose just like a flood, and the homeostasis of the blood is absolutely disturbed. So the disease is arising from the homeostasis of the blood being disturbed, because the main component of blood has to be glucose, which is transported to each and every living cell, where you burn the glucose by oxygen that you deeply take in through your lungs, transported to the hemoglobin, the iron catching the oxygen, taking it into each and every cell and giving the oxygen to burn the glucose, catching ATP, the living biological battery, adenosine triphosphate. So when you burn, carbon dioxide arises from glucose through the action of oxygen, releasing ATP. You take that and live. So we have converted glucose, which is actually fixed, absorbing the carbon dioxide by the living green grasses. You are making complex carbohydrates through this glucose and digesting in your tummy, releasing the energy. So the sun energy, biochemical energy, and biological battery, and you live. While doing this, you are burning carbon dioxide. So you're burning glucose to carbon dioxide, releasing energy. And the same carbon dioxide has to be absorbed by the plants, again make the glucose. You see, this is the carbon cycle. It is nothing but energy movement so that living things can live. Be it an animal, be it a rabbit, be it a cow, be it a pig, be it a microbe, even the microbes that live, that are hosted by the grasses to fix the water, to fix many more elements actually. And the story doesn't end there. The microbes in the soil are actually responsible in collecting all these different nutrients and making the plants live their life, so that they make these seeds and other wonderful metabolites that are required by the animals. Now that's how we end up having fauna and flora. So all the nutrients that the humans need, the pigs need, the cows need, the lions need, the living things need on this planet are fixed by the microbes, and no one bothers about that, because the present day, modern day agriculturists, so-called experts, have not bothered to sustain these wonderful microbes on the soil, because they have been loading with fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, fungicides, which are killing these wonderful microbes that make your food nutrient and rich to produce the real healthy bodies, whether it is human or animals. This is the process. And we, in the name of science, in the name of expertise, have screwed up this issue. And providing food in the last 70 to 100 years, the corporatization of food has been the sole reason for all the diseases in the last 70 years. So this is my take, my analysis, and said, okay, now if my theory is right, I should be able to get rid of diabetes, BP, type 1 diabetes, all these whatever nonsensical names that we have been giving, by feeding them the right food. So that's how I actually was working in America, left everything, came back in 1997 and started looking for these wonderful grains. And lo and behold, these corporate companies, experts said, hey, this is bird feed. Hey, this is pig's feed. Hey, this is animal feed. What are you eating? These are coarse grains. These are the exact words these experts used. And we all thought, oh, these experts are telling this is not our food. That's bird feed. Let's leave them to birds. And what do we eat? We have here produced rice and wheat for you and the byproducts of rice and wheat. We all started concentrating that as our food because it's the fine, refined foods that the corporate people started giving. And one after the other, diseases started entering the human race. And we have no clue. And we all started looking for medicine.
Yeah.
And you see the disconnect? So we did this wonderful connection and said, let's feed these so-called sick fellows. Because I use the word so-called consciously because they're not sick by choice. They're sick by what they're eating. So if we change that, the health should come back. That means the nutrients and the removing the toxic morbid waste from the body should happen. That happens with millet food. So that's why when you use the word diet, I'm little hesitant to use the word diet. Is not the right word. It is the food. Millet food does this connect, that it produces all the nutrients that your replenishing living cells need in the body. The job is done perfectly. And on top of it, the stress created by oxidation of glucose, it's called oxidative stress. While making ATP, you release EMF, electron motive force, the extra energy that transferring the electron from higher potential to lower potential where ATP is synthesized, capturing that energy. There is a leakage of energy. It's called electron motive force. It is not a particle. It is in the field form, the energy. Then it gains momentum and becomes a radical. That means it has become an electron which is spinning this side or that side. And as it gains more and more energy momentum, it seeks an atom which wants to capture this electron, like oxygen or sulfur or nitrogen. So now you have these free radicals roaming around, trying to do the damage that they can because they want to pair with another electron or go to a cation. So this drama and dance creates the damage in your living cells. And once few cells get damaged, then the organelles fall into trap. And then the organs get slowly damaged and the dysfunction of a particular organ sets in. And if the organ is pancreas, we call it pancreatitis. And if it is something else, we call that as TIS. So TIS, you add and you create now diseases. But where did the origin of the disease come from? From the EMF. So there is no one to take up that toxic morbid waste, which can translate into various material domain doses. From the energy field of negativity, you have created damaging substances. And not removing them is the source of your disease. So if you want to be at ease, you want to be able to remove that diseased conditions. And that's what the fiber in the millets does wonderfully. The fiber is pool of aromatic electrons with 5 rings, 7 rings, 10 rings. So the energy, instead of becoming radicals, enters into this pool of aromatic lignons, they are called. Nowhere else you have got these wonderful lignons in any food that you eat, especially of late in the modern food materials. And that's how you see simple diseases entering the body and becoming complex and chronic. We see young boys and girls falling sick with type 1 diabetes, blood pressure, thyroid, TSH not being all right. All these are the results of the homeostasis of the blood not being all right and the toxic morbid waste not being cleaned. So if we can do this with single stroke of changing the food that has the control of releasing glucose into your bloodstream, as well as cleaning the toxic morbid waste as and then generated, we have accomplished the problem of making living things live and not create sickness. Am I making sense?
Yes, yes. No, everything's so when I had to learn about like the citric acid cycle, carbon cycle, all that stuff, it's like a review session. I'm learning all of it in
Absolutely.
context now, so it's very neat. Thank you so much.
Yes. So this is how it happens, and we can get health back to a diseased body when you make their food as millets. So in the millets, there are many varieties. As I said, major millets, minor millets, and minor millets have fiber to carbohydrate ratio falling into single digits. Major millets have 2 digits. So when you eat major millets, you get the nutrition all right, but then the cleaning up of your body does not happen perfectly. Hence, our research shows that you need to include minor millets into your food system more often than the major millets. Of course, major millets supply you enough nutrition, but the cleaning up of the body to see that disease is not entering into your cells can be done only through minor millets fibers. Fiber is interloculated with the carbohydrate, the grain. Hence, the release of glucose is slow and steady. So, 1 minute. No, they are medical. It's okay. This is what it is. So this is the essence of millet food, that it can cure diseased condition and it can prevent the diseases. So they are nutraceuticals as well as healing grains.
So when you say major and minor millets, can you give us examples of those major and minor millets so that people know when we're talking about?
Yeah. Finger millet is called ragi.
Mhm.
Bajra, pearl millet called sajjay. Jowar, great millet. Corn is also a C4 grass, but it is not a millet because the grain is quite big. So we will call it a neutral grain. And minor millets are kodo millet, barnyard millet, foxtail millet, little millet, brown top millet. There may be many more. We have lost them because of the corporate food culture. No one is growing them. And if you don't grow for 10 to 15 years, the seeds are lost forever. And it's high time we went back to the tribal areas and see if they are still left. And that's what I did. Came back 1997, and actually all the minor millets were almost lost. And now in North India, 1 or 2 millets are left, bajra and finger millet. In South India also, it was the same case. Ragi and jowar were left. So if you people don't eat, you lose the grains, you lose the seeds. So way back in 1990, I recognized this problem, and it's not just reviving the millets, it is reviving the food of the planet itself, because these are the real food, not only for human gut, for many, many living things on this planet. Unimaginable damage we have done by the choice of rice and wheat and sugar as our food. So millets are not just your food. It's the food for the 80% of the living things on this planet. Many birds, thousands of varieties of birds, they eat the grains of these C4 grasses. And if the birds are not fed properly, there is no biodiversity on this planet, because they keep the seeds, disperse them to various parts of the world. So by eliminating millets, we are eliminating the birds' diversity. And you can see the fauna and flora of the planet has come down more than 50% in the last 100 years. So we are damaging the planet's ecology itself by eating what we are eating.
So when you talk about millet being more sustainable, that might be so that's true for how it's being farmed currently because it seems to be being farmed in like, smaller contexts. But if let's say the West were to co-opt millet, they want to then corporatize that. Would that not also cause problems in how that's being dispersed to people, or is millet just more difficult to kind of corrupt in terms of its nutritional value compared to rice and wheat?
It's a loaded question. It's a loaded question. Corporatization of food is the most unscientific thing that you can do. So I have no problems with corporatization, but food should not be corporatized. Doing the corporatization, they have taken away the seeds of the people, seeds of the farmers, rights to the seeds. In the name of tinkering with some genetic modifications, they have started patenting. And this is the sad story of Western culture. They start patenting the intellect and then start making profits. They patent for 25 years. No one should do anything like that. That's something nonsensical when it comes to food, because the sovereignty of each nation is dependent on the food that they eat. And the food being corporatized, now they have the right. And you can see that result already happening in many countries now. When there is a war, they don't have food. In fact, many countries do not have the seeds. They do not even have, they are all importing the food, this rice and wheat. That's the sad story. And that's what the corporatization does for you. So millets, of course, the C4 genetic code is rather difficult to crack. It's that, not that the corporates do not know this, they are trying their level best, and it is happening. I mean, they are already started with some bajra being manipulated, and they say higher yield. But the results are already there. When you corporatize food, the nutritional values and the disease causing conditions creep into your food. And if the people want to make that mistake again, then we will be in the cycle of sickness all over again. So I'm trying to communicate to you is that we have found, rather discovered, that this is the way food should be. Food should be in your kitchen. You cannot order Zomato, Swiggy, and then start eating your food. That's not food. That's not food at all. And many expressions are there in the West as junk food. There is no junk food. It is junk. If you are not giving health to the bodies, then what is the definition of food? See, this is where the problem is, that our minds are being brainwashed with this corporate chatter, and then we fall into prey into these cobwebs that they have created. And when you go to a doctor doesn't talk about nutrition and food at all. He talks about this medicine for this condition, that medicine for that condition. And medicine doesn't cure. It can only give you some relief, because you're correcting on the top layers. So you want real health? Go to your kitchen. Go to the real foods. I'm sorry to use the word real food, because we are now thinking this is our food. The rice, wheat, sugar, meat, milk, all these are unnatural, and they are artificially produced in large scale centralized systems. And that's where the mistake is. So we should not be repeating the same mistakes in terms of millet food also. So I keep telling this to everyone, that we should not be doing this, and corporatization of food is not the right thing to do. You can corporate, you can make a car, you can make this, you can make that. iPhone, fine, very good, because that's the way you make things. Corporates are needed to bring down the cost, all kinds of economic, these are all economic models. But we are not talking about economy here. We are talking about ecology, the sustainable living planet. And that choice of food should have been millets, and we have been misled by the corporates and then created many problems. Because to produce this so-called food of rice, wheat, meat, and milk, we have consumed the essential natural resource called water. Almost all over the planet, water is gone. The aquifers of California, the Everglades of Florida, and the Punjab 5 rivers have disappeared, and many more places. You go to Africa, there is no water for the whole the Cape Town and things like that. And Africa is also facing the same problem, despite they not having done anything seriously, because they are dependent on the food produced by other countries. This is creating havoc, and we are all not talking about it. So you better follow nature to produce the food in its true sense, and it is the food that gives you health, not the medicines.
You mentioned that meat and milk are also part of, like, the foods that we should not be eating, that we've been told we should eat. So, I myself am vegetarian, but I have a lot of friends who eat meat, and milk is a huge part of my life. It's part of like lots of the recipes that my grandma shows me, my mom shows me, and also, at least from what I've learned in school, vitamin B12 is very essential for almost all human beings. And I've been told that the only way that you can receive or, like, get vitamin B12 is through animal byproducts, whether that be meat, milk, eggs, cheese, something like that. So I was kind of skimming through how you live your life and saw
Yeah,
that you say that no dairy is the way to go and no meat as well. So how do you fulfill
yeah.
that requirement?
Vitamin B12 is not made by animals. It is the microbes that are hosted by each and every animal makes vitamin B12. So it is the byproduct of the microbes. So my gut also has some microbes, and we have been eliminating them. So the simple answer for your question is, what if I host real healthy microbes? And it is the microbes that do the job. So we have what is called fermented porridge, has been the food for many generations all over the planet. That is the way food has been eaten for time immemorial. Fermented porridge. And fermented porridge you make with minor millets. Within 30 days, your vitamin B12 is only one of the parameters that you are all aware of. There are so many parameters, the regulators, transmitters, transporters, manufacturing, many other issues, many other biochemicals that your living cells cannot make. The symbiotic microbes that live in your gut does the job. Not only that, they have the soothing, calming chemicals production to make your nervous system sit in place, and so many more. In fact, the circadian clock, the required systems, many endocrine systems depend on these wonderful microbes that are very specific for each gut. So this is the wrong misinformation provided by the so-called expertise of late in the last 100 years, saying that you need animal products to get vitamin B12. For your kind information, there is not even a single peptidase in your mouth till you go to the stomach. Only after the acid wash you get into 3 to 5% of proteases are available in the human system to biosynthesize and to degrade. So the role of protein is overplayed because it is a business proposition for the Western food corporates. So the whole question of eating meat is absolutely nonsensical as far as science is concerned for human gut. We are herbivorous animals. So the issue is closed. You won't need anything. The nature has provided 99% of the planet's problems are, and the nutritionist problems are, they have not taken the microbes into consideration. The microbial world does wonderful things, and that is underplayed by the so-called scientific domain which exists now, because if they put across the information in its true fashion, businesses are going to disappear, because the human beings then become really sovereign as regards to food. So I can grow my food anywhere on this planet and I can be independent. And that's the reason why corporate food experts want to take away the sovereignty of food by making certain adjustments which suit their role. I hope I'm making it very clear, loud and clear. So a lot of information that you receive, especially Western scientific domains, provide or misconstrue. I mean, they what do you call this? Misguide, misinform, hide the truth. All these things have been used very efficiently. So no one, have you ever studied that there is no protease in your mouth till the...
Yes. Yes.
Then why are we looking for more protein? Why are we looking for... You need only 5% of protein.
Yeah.
So why are they hyping? You need this much protein, that much protein, so you need to eat meat. And to make 1 kilo of meat, you need 50,000 liters of potable water. You see how damaging, how consuming the nature's resources are. And we call scientists ourselves when we do these barbarous acts on nature. I'm asking you the question.
No, I'm learning a lot on this call. So
Absolutely.
I'm just kind of like,
Absolutely.
trying to take it all in and kind of reappraise what I know.
I hope we are recording it.
Yes, we are recording it. We are recording it. It'll be on YouTube. But yeah, I never really thought about it that way. And to some extent, science encourages questioning, but also when you're learning in school and stuff, that space for questioning isn't as available. So to some
No,
extent,
even after you become a so-called scientist, the space is not available.
so I've never really turned over every single thing I've learned like that, but having this conversation with you is really making me rethink a lot of the things that I've accepted as fact because of the way that I was taught in school. So thank you so much for sharing your kind of background and your interest. And it made me want to know a little bit more about why you became interested in millet in the first place. Was it like a connection through your family, how your family ate, or just something that you picked up along the way?
No, that's personally, I was a meat eater. I mean, I was born into a meat eating family, but then way back when I was 8 to 9 years old, it was an emotional thing that I shouldn't eat animals. And, I started getting away from eating meat and animals and fish, everything. I wanted to get away, and I have gotten away. And as I grow old, as I learned science, things became very clear. And then that's why I had to declare myself as an independent scientist, because I couldn't fit into any organization.
Got it. Thank you so much. So we talked about, potable water and how much potable water is going into livestock and, you know,
And I wanted to answer your question of milk. And milk
yeah.
is food of a mammalian system. The mother feeds the baby when the baby is small, and the human baby switches off its milk digesting enzyme when the baby is around 2.5, 3 years old, because that's the time when the mother's milk evaporate from the breasts. That means mother cannot feed the baby anymore. So imagine the same mother gives birth to another baby. Does the first baby come and drink the milk? No. So who does the cow give milk for? For you to have paneer, to have cheese, to have... It is for that baby, that calf, and the constituents, the steroidal composition, everything is befitting for its growth. So you bring cow's milk because cow doesn't say anything when you steal the milk and put it into your baby's mouth. And that is the reason why all women on this planet are menstruating at the age of 9 average now. Before it was 14 or 15, all over the world, not just in America, Europe, India. Now the average age of girls menstruating is 9 because you're disturbing the hormonal balance. Just like glucose imbalance you created by rice wheat choice, now by choosing milk, you have created hormonal imbalance in the human race. And that is the sole reason why men have the sperm count going down in the last 50, 60 years. So much so that Italians are not there anymore in the Italy. There are no Italians born. Negative growth. That means the sperm count of Italians is evaporated. And women with PCOD, endometriosis, uterine fibroids, all these are basically hormone imbalance. And if I may be very curt and very bad in my expression, the beauty parlors, the upper lip of women getting the hair due to testosterone increase because of your milk consumption. And you have more beauty parlors in the last 20 years all over the world because you have created hormonal imbalance in women. And there was someone expressing this, that in America, women shave more than men. I mean, it's a ridiculous way to put it, but it's a fact.
Once again, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I actually personally, I have PCOS. And one of the first recommendations that was made to me was to cut out dairy. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out why. But that explanation
This is the reason.
helps a lot. Yeah.
Because estrogen and testosterone are the essential balance for an embryo to become a girl or boy. And then you keep screwing it up, you see all these variations.
Yeah. Switching gears just a little bit, since we've been talking about kind of millet and some of the offshoots of that initial question. You recommend structured water as a part of a healthy lifestyle. Could you explain the concept of structured water for people who might be listening in who don't know that much about it, as well as its benefits, some that you've seen in your own life or other people who've incorporated it into their lives?
Yeah, what is structured water? Water is a beautiful material on this planet because it has got the best hydrogen bonding. That is an extra attraction of oxygen and hydrogen from molecule to molecule, because it is the oxygen which is electronegative pulls the electrons towards itself, and the hydrogen becomes delta positive and oxygen becomes delta negative. So you have water molecule, oxygen in the center, and at 104 or 108 in that range, 2 hydrogens are arranged. So now the delta positive nature on each hydrogen now is attracted to the delta negative nature of other water molecule. So you have called a weak attraction called hydrogen bonding, which doesn't exist anywhere to any part of molecules on this planet. And that's why water is so special, so special. So when the water runs through rivers and the water gets structured because it is that hydrogen bonding keeps them like that. And there is no liquid which has got this wonderful structure. And other liquids, when you heat solid materials, they do not have this. It's due to only the temperature variations that make that. So this is the structure of water. And in between, you may have more polar chemicals coming and disturbing this. So if you go to a running streams, you get the structured water. When you actually take bath, and our body is 72% water. So if you have this structured water going through your system, all the biochemical processes take place exactly because the energy bandwidth of this hydrogen bonding makes the biochemistry happen perfectly in your whole body. 72% of your system is water. So you want the water to be the way it is in nature. But then when you have all these chemicals, polar chemicals going in, structure of the water is disturbed for sure, for sure. So we have come up, I have not come up, it's been a process discovered ancient times that our sadhu and rishis always put the water in a copper vessel, copper pot. They carry water in the copper pots. So the copper has got 3D 4s electrons. That is the way the periodic table is arranged, that 4s electrons and 3D electrons, they have to balance themselves to create stability. They keep rotating on the upper surface of the copper plate, copper material. So it is this bandwidth, which is exactly like our water molecules, hydrogen bonding. So any distortions in the water get corrected because of the movement of free electrons on the copper plate. So when you put water in a copper vessel or you put a copper plate in the water, even if you have polar chemicals dissolved in the water, they all get eliminated and copper starts accumulating on its surface. So you take the copper plate and clean it with some organic acids like citric acid, like lemon juice, or tartaric acid, like tamarind. You clean up the mess that you have got what is in it. And the water is structured. So when you use that structured water for your food, for your drinking, the systems fall in place and you will see you are healthy throughout. You do not have these infectious diseases because even the viruses and microbes are killed because of the copper plate free electrons running around. Because many of the living bacteria and virus top layers, what you call cell wall, is disrupted because of this wonderful electrons of the bandwidth running around. So you kill the viruses, you kill the bacteria, and the dead bacteria and thing are deposited slowly and you can clean it up. So you're achieving. Many of the human beings' diseases are waterborne, many acute diseases are waterborne. So you're always safe when you put a copper plate, leave it for 3 to 5 hours, if not 3 to 5 hours, overnight also. Then your water that you are putting into your mouth is always cleaner than otherwise. So that's how you can remain healthy for a long periods if you continue the habit of taking structured water, food, and structured water as your drinking water. I hope I have made very clear.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So herbal decoctions or like kashayam seem to be a significant part of your recommendations as well. Can you share more about what these are for maybe Western audiences that aren't very familiar with them and how they can contribute to better health?
Yeah, they are specific EMFs. That means we actually have designed based on our knowledge of Ayurveda, the traditional medicinal system, where um, the knowledge is that if you have any sickness, the medicine is around you
Mhm.
in the form of the plants, the roots, the leaves of various biodiversity of flora. So you only have to look for a medicinal plant. And we also claim that all plants on this planet are medicinal for someone or the other, someone or the other. So I have designed the decoction method to make it very convenient for common man, because anything that is soluble in nature in water is not poisonous for you. So any leaf you can take, boil it for 2 to 3 minutes, and then filter it and take it. All the good things only will come to you, not any poison, because plants do harbor a lot of poisons. For many different parts of animals, different things can happen to you. So some chemicals that are poisonous for you may not be poisonous for some other living thing, because we are not designed to deal with that particular chemicals. But if a chemical is soluble in water, it is not poison for human body. This is the essence of my decoction, complementing, supplementing the human diseased condition. So we get the medicinal value of different kinds of leaves, and we have tested, experimented upon 80 to 90 leaves around us, and then tabulated. Depending upon the different parts of the body, we administer that particular decoctions, and in combinations one after the other, we can actually successfully treat many conditions. And that being complementary, and food being eliminating the disease in completely, preventing the disease itself, both complementing each other will give you complete health. And of course, there is one more wonderful use of decoctions. There are the viruses, bacteria, fungal things that are being hosted on these plants and leaves. The dead bodies of that are also going to be ingested in within you when you take decoctions, which also work as wonderful antigens for your immune system, creating wide variety of diversified antigens for you. So in case a pathogen comes into, you have already got very similar antigens available in the wide variety of the microbes that we have ingested in the form of decoction. So you're already battle ready. When a real pathogen comes, we don't fall sick. And actually, that was what we have used even to face COVID. And we have been very, very successful. Not only COVID, H1N1, H5N1, all these viral infections can be easily defeated once you are battle ready. And that's what we call natural immunization. So the decoctions are the most wonderful technique to have natural immunity develop in your system. And that anyone can achieve if you are running around among the plants, in the forest, in the gardens. And that's the logic. In our ancestral temples, we used to have different varieties of plants, and people come, sit, spend, actually take devotional pradakshina, we call, around a plant system like people tree, neem tree, tulasi. All these traditions are based on this wonderful science.
You mentioned Ayurveda briefly, and so I'm very interested in Ayurveda every single time I go visit India, which is pretty often. I make sure to go speak to Ayurvedic professionals that I know of. And I remember like a couple of times when I've gone to them for consultations for like issues that I've had with my health, they've mentioned using dairy as part of the plan to as part of my treatment. And so I was kind of wondering, some of your recommendations that fall in line with Ayurveda, others seem to be kind of different. I don't know if maybe I just don't have the proper knowledge and that's why I'm misconstruing things, or if you actually have like slightly different recommendations for a reason.
No, present Ayurveda is absolutely out of whack. They are not following the basic rules, according to me, because milk is used as an agent to reduce, to make the strength of the decoctions and churnas and things like that. So dairy is not used as a main medium. It's just to disperse some strong medicines. And there was no milk to start with. In the olden days, there were no cows. I mean, you have now every cow giving milk 25 liters. And earlier days, if you have 1,000 cows, only 100 or 150 cows used to bear calves. And the calves, after drinking the milk, what is left is very small amount of milk. That means if you have 1,000 cows, you may have 5 to 10 liters of milk left. So where is the question of milk being used? So this is a wrong information, even from Ayurveda stand viewpoint. They might have used small ml of milk to reduce or to distribute the medicines like that. And it has to be fresh, not the cold room milk and preserved milk and all that. So that is your answer, that the present day Ayurveda people have read the books and then the milk is there. So they are using in tons of this. And in fact, that's why they are not able to cure any disease, even through Ayurveda. So you cannot actually have ready-made medicines and call yourself Ayurveda.
You've provided like a list of do's and don'ts for various food categories in your like prescribed lifestyle. So how would you say these recommendations align with maintaining a balanced and healthy lifestyle? And for those of the listeners who have not, been super familiar with your recommendations, if you could briefly touch on a few of them, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, basically everything that we have been ingesting has been subjected to the analysis of science and see if they can go into your system or not. First thing is whether they are necessary or not necessary. Because many people think, oh, you just eat because you can eat. When you don't have any necessity, you should not eat. So like that, we have checked all things, checklist, do's and don'ts. So many people ask me this question, dry fruits are in the don'ts. Though dry fruits have been given a lot of nutritional value, all that. But the processes that make them dry fruits is absolute no-no, because the drying agents, keeping them dry all the time for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years in the market, obviously you have used some desiccant coating. And desiccants means they keep away water. So our living cells are all hydrophilic. So you start filling with desiccant material, which is hydrophobic, you're going to be obviously not well, isn't it? So that's how we have analyzed all these do's and don'ts and found list of things to do and things not to do, especially food. Now, of course, some practices like vitamin D, you get it from sun. So we recommend everyone to find the early morning sun, which encourages, initiates many of your endocrine systems. So like that, we have found different things, do's and don'ts. So that's the brief dent into that kind of system. Of course, a lot of science is there. With each and every parameter, I can go on speaking hours together. Yeah, and I am actually trying to communicate to you is that we are finding things that are not suiting the Western thought process of medicine and allopathic. We want to be totally away from medicines. We want food to be the health giver. So if your food is right, no medicine is needed. And if your food is wrong, no medicine works. So we want to get away from the established system of health, medicine, and the concepts themselves are, according to me, wrong because we have not defined food yet on this planet. And human system, human race has to define what food is. And I have been trying to do that for the last 30 years.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, so you mentioned dry fruits specifically, and a lot of people that I know, like before they eat like almonds or badam, for example, they soak it before eating it. Does that in any way kind of combat like the increased use of like desiccants, or is that just kind of like putting a band-aid on a wound?
No, desiccants are not soluble in water. So there may be some water soluble things, like if you have pulses, there is phytic acid in them. So by soaking them and removing the water once or twice, you might have helped yourself remove the phytic acid. But then what if I coat these pulses with a desiccant? The desiccant doesn't come into water. And even if it comes, you're going to cook that and then consume it. So I gave you one example of desiccant. There are actually fungicides, insecticides are also coated because all these things matter. I just gave you one example. So you want to dry fruits dry in your house in the sun and then eat them. No problem. I have no problem with that. And that's why I said cooking, kitchen is your, don't process food in the corporate world and then call it food. So when you centralize the processes, it's economics coming to picture. Chemicals come. When I dry my fruit in my house, in my backyard, I don't do that. So I'm not against dry fruits. If you are drying in your house, in your kitchen, good, go ahead, do that, no problem. So kitchen has to be the center of our living. So if you go out of your kitchen, our kitchen is closed now. In Western world, there is no kitchen. It's a microwave, no? You just pop in and or you dine it out, you go out in the restaurants. So this is what my serious, everyone has to get into their kitchens to be healthy.
Sure. Can you also just briefly touch on the importance of choosing the right types of oils and ghee for cooking, and how traditional methods of like oil extraction influence the quality of the oil?
Yeah, yes, TP is the essence of science here, standard temperature and pressure. So now you go underneath the ocean where there is pressure is more. So your lungs collapse. Now you go to Himalayas, climb up. You need oxygen cylinder to push the oxygen to rest onto your lungs. So that means biochemical processes happen at a particular given temperature and pressure. Am I right? So now you have oil excavators, this, that, all processes. You have machines running around and your natural materials, oil extraction takes place. You have disturbed the temperature and pressure at the same time. So the pull-driven oils that we used to use does not violate this rule. So the material is a biochemical material. That means it has to follow the STP. So when I put groundnuts and then make the bull go around slowly at 1 RPM, there is no increase in the pressure. If there is pressure increase, the temperature is remaining there only because of the wooden vessel that we use. So you can increase either temperature or pressure. So you increase the only pressure with the weight and the thing going around, and the temperature is maintained. So the oil that comes out is naturally remaining nutrient. And the double bonds, the unsaturated, saturated fatty acids keep their systems intact. And when you do this other way around, where you're increasing the temperature and the pressure, what happens, including phenolic substances, polymerize in a wrong way. You do not have the antioxidant properties of many of these fatty acids, which are actually essential for building nerves and nerve signals. So many systems depend on fat material. In fact, your brain has 67% fat material. The nerves are actually bioprocessed through fat. So if you are giving wrong fat material while the baby is born, and you see mentally retarded kids, autistic kids, all these things happen because you are using the refined oils where there are no real oils, the fats. So we have actually done a lot of experiments. By using the real oils, you could even reverse many of these autistic systems. So that is the essence of natural oils and the processes being very natural. So the STP is very important, and that's why even cooking, we suggest cook in mud pots, because mud pots do not build up pressure. If you cook in a steel vessel, the lower parts in the vessel have more pressure, and then you are heating also. That means you have disturbed STP. In a mud pot, there are micro pores that release the pressure. So cooking in a mud pot, there is no pressure, though temperature is increasing. You see the beauty of our old system. Even today, if you go to Puri Jagannath temple, they cook all their food in the mud pots only for thousands of people. So cooking in mud pots is very important as far as science is concerned. So that's why I encourage people to cook everything in mud pots. Or earlier days, people used to stand in front of the cooking vessel and keep rotating things because the pressure is released when you keep stirring. That's one, just a small correction. When you cook, you keep stirring. It's very important. Open cooking is important. But nowadays we are cooking in pressure cookers, which is absolutely bad and unscientific.
So kind of delving a little bit deeper into food and how we make food. So in your recommendations, you talk about how salt and sugar, the way that we use them as like the way that the majority of people use it, they use probably iodized salt, and they're using some sort of cane sugar, jaggery, or honey. And you recommend that we use sea salt, rock salt, or black salt over industrial salts, and palm jaggery over, the sweeteners that most people use. So can you talk a little bit more about the benefits of both of those?
Yeah, other sugars have higher glucose content, and palm trees have less glucose content and high fructose content. And fructose doesn't disturb the homeostasis of the blood. Hence, use of the sweetener in that family of the plants. And sugarcane sucrose has high content of glucose. So that's as simple as that. And honey, I'm not very sure anyone should be using, though people claim it has this medicinal value. But honey bees need honey, not you. So, so as simple as that. What else? Salt, of course. If you use iodized salt, flowing salt, again you have the desiccant problem. And iodine has to be gotten from your many vegetables and And salt is not your iodine provider, though it happens in some places. Natural sea salt provides you sodium chloride to some extent. And of course, sodium, potassium, all are available in many of the vegetables and fruits and grains and all that. So, salt, you do need to balance your heart electric signals to pump the thing, and that's how the sodium channel, potassium channels, and you are sweating out, and a lot of chelators come into pictures. So the sweat system, the sweat glands operate on these balancing salts, so you do not want to be dumping salt, a lot of it, like the way now corporate food, like they have high amount of salt, high amount of sugar, and no one talks about it. And so these are all the bad things that the corporate food has. They have just thrown away the science to the winds and creating market for themselves. So that's why I keep telling, please go back to your kitchen, add the right amounts, make good food, eat right, and eat the right food. All these things are required to be important ingredients to maintain health.
Yeah.
I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, no, absolutely. And so you were talking about how, like, maybe in some areas, salt might naturally have like a little bit higher iodine content, which makes me think more about local foods and eating local. So you stress on consuming locally grown seasonal fruits and vegetables. Can you explain why and how this can contribute to one's health and well-being?
The sustainability of the planet as a whole depends on local food production, local processing, and local eating. I consciously use the word eating, not consumption. Generally, all experts keep talking local production, local processing, local consumption. We are not here to consume things. We are here to eat and live. So you conserve things, and that possibility is through locally seasonal. See, this season you have carrots and beans. Next season you have brinjal and something else. So the diversity of the things in nature have different things coming up in nature at different times. So you should not be saying, I love my carrot and I will produce for 365 days because I have the technology. I mean, they're all wrong practices. And that's what is being practiced now in the economic model, because everyone has to eat carrot. Everyone has to eat dragon fruit. I mean, that's absolute nonsense. So that's the logic.
And then can you elaborate on the types of snacks that you recommend? So how can incorporating those snacks positively?
No one should be eating snacks. You eat your food right. Eat once, generally that's good enough. Eat twice, it's okay. And if you keep eating 4 times, 5 times, you're going to be sick. So I don't encourage anyone to go to eat snacks. I encourage people to eat once or twice in a day, and that should cover all your needs, and you should be fine.
Okay. And then this is my last question for the day. So you've listed certain drinks as beneficial, including certain types of milk and coconut water. Can you discuss these recommendations and how they impact your health?
Yeah, coconut water especially is available all over the planet. Wherever there are backwaters, you can get to the coconuts. And coconuts are naturally packaged. There is no need for any artificial packages. So you can transport them anywhere to anywhere. And the water, the coconut water, the tender coconut water is best drink and best balanced salts that human blood needs, basically. So it's very good balancing the salts, and that means it's very good for your heart. And there are wonderful amounts of potassium, salt, and sodium for maintaining good healthy heart. So you need healthy heart all the time. So, and coconut milk also has this capacity, and especially hot summer days, coconut milk helps you out in maintaining the balance of salts balance. Especially people lose a lot of water in hot summer days. So sodium is responsible for water balance in your system and movement of water through sodium channels. And so all these things are very important. And some certain juices like ashgod juice, cucumber juice, they also have got this wonderful capacity to direct the electric signals of the heart and cleaning up of the heart, thinning of the blood. So all these issues are there in the recommendations of these juices and things.
Okay. So like I said, that's all the questions that I have. But is there anything that we didn't cover that you want the people who are listening to know?
Yeah, you need to have conserving nature, which is not, this is not science, this is common sense. This is common sense. You want to leave things to the coming generations. So we need to get out of this consuming culture to conserving culture. So we need to be efficient in absorbing the right energy. And there is one thing that is important. You being little hungry is always better than overloading your metabolism. So eat less, little less than what you want to. And that's what is going to help you in a long run, not only your health, the future planet's health.
Thank you.
Eat little less, not more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For
Thank you.
going
Thank
through
you
all
so
of
much.
these questions with us, and taking the time to not just explain or just tell us what you have come up with the recommendations, but also explaining the science behind it, because it helps kind of like us learn how to reappraise the world, think about things a little bit differently. So thank you once again.
Not little bit differently. We need to think absolutely differently, because the present established systems are ruining the planet, ruining the ecology, ruining the living things on this planet. And the sole source of carbon footprint is agricultural practices for the last 100 years. 10 billion tons is the carbon footprint produced by the food industry alone. And the remaining all activities of human beings is only 4 billion tons. Can you see the difference? Yeah. So that's why I call is consuming. In terms of carbon dioxide footprint, it is the food industry that is the major culprit. And if we do not change that, there is no real food for coming generations and no future at all. Thank you. I take leave of you.
Dittam, kidatakatam takadikutari kidatakata dittam, kidatakatam takadikutari kidataka dittam, kidatakatam takadikutari kidataka talangu dinta din, dittam, kidatakatam takadikutari kidataka talangu dinta din, dittam, kidatakatam takadikutari kidataka talangu dinta talangu di, talangu dinta talangu di, talangu dinta talangu ta.